Well, like Buster was saying, my name is Cam Hunt. I was a pastor at Gateway Church. In about 2018, I left Gateway and my wife came on staff, so we swapped. I left to get my degree in therapy. So now people still see me when I walk around Gateway. They still call me Pastor Cam because we're entrenched in that church. Our whole family is involved in that church. So when I walk around, people still say, "Hey, Pastor Cam," and I don't say, "Hey, I'm not a pastor anymore." I actually became a therapist, and what I found out when I was in ministry is that when you are a minister, you're basically a therapist. You're basically a therapist because I remember sitting with people when I was a junior high pastor, Gateway. They were like, "Hey, listen, once a week for an hour, clear your schedule. We're going to send people your way who need to talk to someone." So when I was a junior high pastor, I'm a junior high pastor, and there's sitting people in here that have problems, and I'm looking at them like, "Are you kidding me? I'm a junior high pastor. I talk to little kids." There are people in here with like marriage problems and stuff. And so I'm like, I'm going to jack you up if I give you any advice. I'm going to mess you up. So I'm like, we had to learn on the fly on how to counsel people. And I'm like, you know what? I saw so many people. I want the education behind helping people. So me and my wife, we swapped. And now I'm a therapist at 7 Therapy Co. Now I'm not saying that so that you could come and see me. I'm not saying, "Hey, listen, you need therapy." As a matter of fact, I can't tell you that you need therapy, but I just want you to know everybody in here is jacked up. We all are jacked up. I just want you to know, okay? So if you need somebody to talk to, you can come and see me, but I'm not allowed to tell you to come and see me, but I am allowed to say you're jacked up. Everybody's got something. I'm telling you, everybody's got something. So that's what happened. I have two boys. Now, first of all, I'm married, interracial. My wife is white, and I have two sons who are mocha frappuccinos. Their color, they're beautiful. They got a built-in tan. Everybody loves it. Everywhere we go, "Oh, your boys are so handsome." I'm like, stop telling them that. Stop telling them that. So my oldest son, get this, he was born with a big red afro. Oh, big red. He looks like a dark-skinned Ronald McDonald. He has red hair. He came out, and I looked at him like, "Is that my kid?" I wanted to talk to my wife. I'm like, "We need to have a discussion. We need to talk." He had he had red hair. And then I have a younger son. His name is Coda. Listen, this is the coolest kid on the whole planet. He looks like Bruno Mars. Y'all know who Bruno Mars is? Imagine Bruno Mars. That's my son. Bruno Mars is my son. So I got two sons. Everywhere we go, people are looking at us like they see me, and they're like, "Oh, hey, there goes Shaq. There goes Shaquille O'Neal. And then this little white lady, and then Ronald McDonald and Bruno Mars." Our family is a freak show. Our family is a freak show, okay? So I'll tell you one funny interracial family story. My oldest son, when he was around 8 years old, we're all sitting on the couch. So he's sitting in the middle. He's sitting in the middle. My wife is sitting right here, and I'm sitting right here, okay? So we're all watching the TV. You got the scene? You got the picture? Wife right here. I'm right here. So my son, he's watching TV, and then he does this. He's about 8, 9 years old. He goes like this. He goes. He looks at her, and then he goes. It's like he's just discovering we're different. This is literally, he's like. And he does it again. He looks at her, and he looks at me, and like it's like a light bulb went off. Then he leans over to her side, and he goes, "How did you get in our family?" To me. That's what he said. He said, "How did you get in our family?" I'm like, listen, I'm the reason you're the color of peanut butter. You better be before I backhand you. He has said the craziest, most things about, the interracial thing. Like when he was younger, we'd be like in a mall or in a store and he'd see like a group of black people walk by and he'd go like this, hey, Dad, look. Dad, look at them. I'm like, son, I don't know every black person in the world. Don't point. We're going to get beat up. He used to do stuff like that all the time. Anyway, we have my family, we are amazing. We love it. We have lots of fun. We laugh a lot about each other. You know what? In this culture, we need to be laughing at each other instead of like trying to dog everybody out and say everybody's racist. Listen, no, let's laugh at each other. Let's laugh at each other's culture. I remember that there used to be a time where people weren't so offended. What are we so offended by? Come on, let's come together, people. Come on. Didn't Rodney King say, can't we just all get along? Okay. Thank you, Rodney, for that saying. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. Resonance, I'm proud of y'all. Y'all are doing amazing, amazing things. You're already in the building. I am shocked. I am surprised. Keep up the good work. Buster called me. He said, hey, man, I want you to speak. And he said, I said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, we're in a series about superheroes. And I said, I got a great title for a superhero message. And the title of this message is, You're Not the Hero. Buster was like, he's like, okay, here we go. There's a reason that I named it this. And it's not so much an you message, but this is more about the culture that we live in. We're living in a culture that is telling you it's all about you. And I'm here to tell you it's not all about you. It's not all about us. We live in this, selfie culture. And I'm just here to tell you, listen, we're not the hero. And I'm here to prove it to you, okay? By the way, this message is not it's not super encouraging. I don't want you to leave and be like, I could have stayed in my pajamas today. I shouldn't have came. Listen, stick around. But this message is it's not super encouraging, but it's super truthful. I'd rather give you the truth. Listen, I'm not going to Joel Osteen you today, okay? Now, can I say something about Joel Osteen? Just really, really quick. I'm going to say something about Joel Osteen really quick. I'm going to tell you something. There are so many opinions about this man, but I'll say this. Joel Osteen, I feel sorry for the guy. He had no idea that his church was going to blow up to that size. This guy was in a back room editing videos. And they said, hey, your dad passed away. Who's going to take the church? And he's like, I guess I'll do it. And I've sat in a room with Joel Osteen, and that man was in tears. He had no idea. So I'm not here to dog out Joel. Listen, God has to be on that thing. Who can preach the same message over and over again and have 50 and 60,000 people show up to your church? Who can write the same book 20 times? Y'all, God is in that thing somehow, some way. God has to be on Joel Osteen because he preaches the same message. Hey, listen, you can do it. You can make it. You're lovely. You're beautiful. Amen. And you're like, I love it. And people just keep coming back. Joel, if you're listening, man, I appreciate you. Show me how you do it. Just show me how you do it. Okay, so I'm not going to Joel Osteen you today. That's not a negative thing. This is not necessarily anti-you, but this is more about the culture. And my message is against the culture, and I just want you to know you're not the hero. Here's point number one. We never cast ourselves as the villain. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that you never, ever say, if you're thinking about a story, let's say David and Goliath. Let's say you're thinking about David and Goliath. We even sang a song today about conquering. Nothing against the worship team. Y'all are amazing. We even sang a song today about, conquering and being the hero. We always cast ourselves as the hero in the story. But no one ever says, yeah, I identify with King Saul. You know what? I identify as Goliath. Have you ever said that? No, don't even lie like you don't even lie. I'm Goliath in that story. My question to you is, should we? Could we be the villain? Could we be the bad guy? Now listen, I'm a therapist. I already told you guys this. I'm a therapist. And the majority of the people that I see are people who go to therapy because the person in their life who needs to go to therapy doesn't go. Does that make sense? Yes. The majority of the people that I see in therapy, when they come into that office, they are not coming into that office because they necessarily need therapy. They're coming into the office because the person in their life that they have the issue with won't go to therapy. My question to you and to everybody out there who's listening, this is not necessarily people in this room, is, are we that other person? Are we the person that needs to go to therapy? Again, I'm not saying, hey, come to therapy. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say, come to therapy. But I'm just saying, think in your mind. Could you be the person? Examine yourself. See, the culture is not telling you to examine your own life. They're trying to tell you you're a victim. They're not saying, they're like, hey, don't worry, you're a victim. No. When you come to church, you learn that you're a victor. You're a victor. But the culture is trying to tell you you are a victim. Okay? Here's the deal. Examine your own life and say, am I the villain in the story? I'm about to give you a superhero reference. I don't know if you guys have seen a set of movies called The Avengers. One of my here class, she's like, yes. There's an Avengers movie. It's the second one. It's called Avengers Age of Ultron. I watch it weekly. For spiritual purposes. I just want you to know. Avengers Age of Ultron. There's a villain in that movie, but it's not the villain you think it is. Tony Stark is actually the villain in the movie. Now you say Tony Stark, you're like, wait, that's Iron Man. Exactly. Tony Stark is usually, you hear that name and you're like, oh, he's Iron Man. He's the hero. No. Not in Age of Ultron. The hero is actually the villain. Just in case you don't know, I'm about to spoiler alert. By the way, I'm not going to spoil it. You should have seen this movie already. It's like 15 years old. You should have seen this. But in the movie, Tony Stark, in desperation, creates an algorithm that comes to life. And that algorithm decides, I need to kill everyone on the planet and start all over again. Tony Stark is the bad guy. And guess what? He comes to grips in the movie really quickly, within like 40 minutes of the movie. If only we could do that in our own life. Come to grips with who we are in a matter of 40 minutes. You ever seen what's the TV show with they live in San Francisco, there's 3 dads, it's like Joey. Full House. You ever seen Full House? You ever seen when how it all wraps up in about 30 minutes? And Danny gets down on one knee and you hear the time to talk music. He's talking to DJ. He's like, DJ, you're messed up. And it's okay. You ever seen that? If only our lives could be summed up in 25 minutes or less. So I'm asking you guys to do something. Examine your own life and say, am I the villain in this story? Now, I know villain sounds like a little bit more like it sounds evil. What I'm saying is examine your own life and say, am I the problem in this situation? And if you are, come to grips with it and make it better. You can do it. Here's another saying from another movie, since we're talking about heroes, okay? I just want y'all to know I'm putting in superhero references into this message, all right? Here's another one. It's from Batman, Harvey Dent. He says this: we either die a hero or live long enough to see ourselves become the villain. I'll say it again. We either die a hero or live long enough to see ourselves become the villain. I'm going to illustrate that point with a Bible verse. Watch this. 2 Samuel 11. It came to pass at the return of the year, at the time when kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all of Israel. And they destroyed the children of Amnon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried at Jerusalem. David was supposed to go out to battle. They were winning. And David's like, you know what? I'm going to chill. And it came to pass at eventide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing. We're already starting the trouble. And the woman was very beautiful. Oh, Lord, here we go. David, man, you getting a little peeper action going on. The woman was very beautiful to look upon, and David sent and inquired after the woman. So, here's David. Where is he supposed to be? Battle. He's not at battle. He was there before. He was winning. He's the hero. He's the hero. David goes home, he chills out, walks on the roof, sees Bathsheba, and says, go get her. So watch this. I'm going to paraphrase the rest because it's a lot. Y'all, go read this chapter. It is literally an episode of Maury Povich right here in the Bible. 2 Samuel 11. Read this thing. This thing is crazy. But I'm going to paraphrase it for you. Jerry Springer, right there in the Bible. So here's David. He sees her. He says, hey, go get her. So he goes. He gets his guy to go and get her. He finds out who she is. She's married. Somebody said, oh, that's exactly right. She is married. So David, he's like, listen, I'm the king. I don't care. I can have whatever I want. So he ends up doing his thing with her, right? She comes back to him. Here's the results of the pregnancy test. I'm pregnant. David's like, oh, snap. He's like, you're pregnant. He's like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So he says, who's her husband? Who's her husband? So he tells his guy, he says, go get her husband. So he starts to talk to her husband. Hey, how you doing, man? You doing good? Yeah? Everything all right in your life? Good, great. You're a soldier for me? Oh, sweet, okay. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home. I want you to, go home and do normal things. I'm giving you some days off. Go home, play in your garden, play with your kids, sleep with your wife. Do normal things that you just normally do, okay? Can you do that? Great. Guess what Uriah does? he doesn't go home because he's dedicated to the king. He slept outside David's door. They're like, King, Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, he didn't go home. And David's like, dang, I need him to go home so it can look like the baby is his and not mine. Is everybody following the story? This is crazy. So he brings Uriah back in and he says, Uriah, hey, how are things going in your life? You doing good? That's great. I'm so glad you're dedicated to me. Hey, come stay here tonight. David gets Uriah drunk. I told y'all this story is crazy. This is in your Bible, by the way. I did not make this up. Y'all are like, man, he's making stories up. Nope, go and read it. 2 Samuel 11. He says, stay here. David gets Uriah drunk and tries to send him home, but Uriah is dedicated to the king. He didn't go home. He slept outside a second night. And David's like, how am I going to get the heat off of me? So he's like, I know what I'm going to do. I got to kill him. So he takes Uriah and he says, put Uriah in the hottest part of the battle. And Uriah died. Why did I tell y'all that story? It's because David started the hero, but after winning and winning, he became the villain. He became the villain. We always want to put ourselves in David's position in the Bible. He slayed Goliath. He slayed a bear. He slayed a lion. Ladies and gentlemen, David became the villain. And I want you to be careful because you can have win, and you can have win. But as you become comfortable, you start to think, I'm kind of something else. And you'll scheme and you'll plot and you'll end up doing something in your comfortableness that's evil. David started the hero, but he became the villain. We have to be careful with that. Here's the second point, number 2, and then I'm going to wrap it on up. So we never cast ourselves at the villain, so we got to examine ourselves and see in our life, have we done some things have we done some things that we need to go to somebody and say, will you forgive me? You want to mend those relationships so that that person becomes whole. Listen, you can help people become whole. And it only takes one word, I'm sorry. It takes 2 words, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry I did this. I've done that many times with my kids. I've apologized many, many times. And let me tell you, that helps your family to see people, to see your kids and your wife say, you know what? I was the villain, and I'm sorry. Number 2 is sometimes we're our own worst villain. Sometimes we beat ourselves up a little too much. Look at this. Sometimes we're our own worst villain. James 1:14 through 15. Before I say this verse, I just want to tell you a little bit about Satan real quick. Hey, thanks for taking that down. Y'all are quick. Man, those guys are quick back there. It was up and they're like, oh. I'll tell you something real quick. Something about Satan that I've noticed. Something about your enemy. Satan, he's patient. Y'all, he's been there, seen it, done it. That guy, he's patient. Here's what I think Satan does. I think Satan sets traps and walks around the corner like Elmer Fudd and just watches. That's all he does. I think that we step in his trap. We do more damage to us than he ever could. That's why I'm saying we are our own worst villain. Watch this. I'll prove it to you. James 1:14 through 15, New King James Version. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own what? Desires. And enticed. Then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. Satan sets the trap. He sets the trap. Why are my things up? Satan sets the trap, stands back, and because of something within us, we step in his trap. And by the way, we often are like, yes, Satan set the trap, but we never look within ourselves and say, did I stepped in that trap? I was lured away. God didn't tempt you. And you know how many people I prayed for that said, why is God doing this to me? Guess what? God had nothing to do with that thing. God had nothing to do with it. He's an innocent bystander most of the time in our lives. Satan set that trap, and we were lured away. We're sometimes our own worst villain. And then when we fail, I just want to say something really quick about failure. Is that, guys, God knows that you're going to fail. He knows that you're going to mess up. He factored in your failure when he sent Jesus. And your failure is not, we're not supposed to be defined by our failure. We're supposed to be refined by our failure. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't let failure define you. Let failure refine you. Let it make you better. Listen, because that's how they do gold. What do they do with gold? Gold is in the ground. It's muddy. It's nasty. It's ugly. What happens is they take gold out of the ground. They put it through fire and pressure, and it comes out gold. Listen, you're going to go through fire and pressure in your life. You come out gold on the other end. I was just thinking about food, and I was like, ooh, that's just like a cake. There's a bakery next door. Okay, listen. They take ingredients that are disgusting on their own. Flour, eggs, except for the sugar. The sugar is good by itself. But think about the eggs and the flour and all that stuff. That stuff by itself is just no good. But what do? They pound that stuff. They put it through fire. That thing comes out a cupcake on the end. Ladies and gentlemen, in your life, you're going to go through fire and pressure, but you come out a cupcake on the other end with frosting and sprinkles on it. That's you. Sometimes we're our own worst villain. We're going to step in that trap. And God knows that you're going to step in that trap. He knows that there's a trap there. He knows that we have desires and we get lured away. He knows that you're going to fail. But don't let that failure define you. Let it refine you. Let it make you better. And you come out gold on the other end. All right. And I want to tell you something real quick. This is a therapeutic note. I have it right here in my notes. Therapeutic note. Self-sabotage starts with a false narrative you tell yourself about yourself. Come on, man. That was good. That was good. Listen, self-sabotage starts with a false narrative you tell yourself about yourself. When you fail and you get into that trap, you start to tell yourself a story about yourself. And you start believing the lie. But let me tell you something. Don't you dare believe the lie, because it will lead to self-sabotage. You let that failure refine you. You let it make you better. I work with kids all the time, and they are just so devastated by some of the things that they do. And they are, it sets them back so far, but I've instilled in them, I'm like, listen, let's not go down this self-sabotage, this trail. No, God factored all of that in. You're going to be good. Just real quick. Think about the woman at the well. She shows up. And Jesus, they have a conversation. And Jesus does this. This is what Jesus does. He said, hey, at the end of the conversation, he goes, go get your husband. And she said, I don't have a husband. And he goes, I know, you've had 5. And she's like, oh, you must be a prophet. Jesus was the only one that could condemn her. He could have called everybody together and said, hey, everybody, get a stone, kill her. They could have killed her right then. That's not what Jesus did. He forgave her. Guess what she did? She went back to everybody in her town and she said, come meet a man who knew everything that I did. And everybody in that town got saved. Every single person in that town got saved. Jesus could have condemned her. Listen, he knows that you're going to fail. Take that failure and let it fuel you let it fuel you. You're going to get better. It's okay. Jesus is not condemning you. Okay, that's it. I'm done. All right, that's another message. Here's the last point. It's this. Do we have some of that Family Matters music in the background? Little keys. Yeah, come on. Y'all have it? Okay. This is pretend like I'm Danny, getting down on one knee. DJ, you're jacked up. It's okay. You're gonna. And by the way, I see a clock back there. We're gonna end early. We're gonna end early. What's the greatest power? The greatest power. We talked about, we could be the villain in the story. Not only that, sometimes we're our own worst villain. But what does it look like to be a hero? What's the greatest power? Now listen, a lot of people say invisibility. If I had invisibility, there would be no money in Bank of America. I would walk in there. If I could shoot lasers out of my eyes, there'd be a few less people on the planet. If I could fly, what would we do? What would we do with those powers if we actually had that stuff? Y'all, it would be really bad. We'd be like, hey, listen, don't talk to me like that. And then we'd punch them so hard they fly to the moon. Whatever. We would abuse those powers. Don't act like you wouldn't. You would. A hero's greatest power is not the power he's known for. A hero's greatest power is self-denial. That's his greatest power. It's not that he can fly. It's not that he can swing from a building. Trust me, I have taken spiders and said, here, bite me, when I was a kid. Come on. Stuck him in a microwave. I'm like, we're going to get him all heated up, nuclear power, and then he's going to come out and he's going to bite me on my hand. And no, then you explode the spider. So trust me, I've done it. The greatest power a hero has is self-denial. Self-denial. Jesus gave up something in order for us to gain something. That's why he's the hero. We've done it in our lives, but you're not the hero. He is. Jesus is the hero. And sometimes we're the villain, but he doesn't want you to stay the villain. You can get better. He knows. That's why he had to be the hero. That's why he had to be the hero. Matthew 16:24-26 says this. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? John 15:13 says this, American Standard Version, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. The greatest power a hero can have is self-denial. And I'm asking you, if you want to be like Jesus, you have to deny yourself. Jesus said, you want to follow me? Pick up your cross. Follow me. Follow me. And I appreciate what this church is doing. You know, Pastor Buster, all that he does. It's a sacrifice to be a head pastor. There's a lot that he doesn't get to do because he's trying to build this house. He forfeits a lot of his life to give this house something. And I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. You give up a lot. This takes guts, y'all. This takes guts. And you know what? When he and I were talking, when there was like this, there was a blow up that happened within the church. When he and I was talking, he was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know and I didn't know what he was supposed to do. All I know is that if he needs support, I'm going to be there for him. And listen, I appreciate being here now because this is the fulfillment of the things that we talked about. Ladies and gentlemen, you're living in the fulfillment of a prayer. So here we are. So I want you to do something. Continue to pray for Buster, his wife, your leader, your church. Y'all got something going on. You're in a building. This is amazing. Got a great worship team. So many things on point. Invite people here. Get them through the doors. Y'all get people saved. Show them the real hero. Introduce them to Jesus. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you. Sometimes we're the villain in our story. And I pray that those relationships that people, that they need to ask for forgiveness, that they would do it. But Lord, I pray that we wouldn't beat ourselves up. That we would realize that you factored in our failure. And I thank you for Jesus coming in and covering up our failure when he could have condemned us. And right now, I pray that when people come into this house, that the people that are in this room, the nucleus of this church, would introduce them to the real hero, and that's Jesus. Thank you for Resonance Church. I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for having me.